Good? Go ahead, sir.
And for Terence, are you ready to feel the Mexican power, Terence?
Oh, yeah. I'm ready.
Keep Canelo's name out of your fucking mouth, Terence Crawford. There's levels to this, and he's levels above you.
A lot of people that say that Crawford can beat Canelo, no problem. I mean, I respect that, but I just think they're stupid. I mean, excuse my language. The size difference of a bigger man changes everything with one punch.
You can't go with what you are. Have you read the papers? Do you know what everybody says? It's suicide. You've seen him. You know how strong he is. You can't win.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Okay, so you know what I always say. The most dangerous weapon in the world is a microphone and a camera. And I just got done watching one of the most interesting exchanges that I've ever seen, at least when it comes to a platform of this level. Andre Ward, he did an interview with Mark Kriegel, and he completely dissected and exposed Mark as the racist that he is. Now, what made this exchange and this interview so fascinating is they were having a conversation about race and the double standards in the sport of boxing when it comes to Terence Crawford. But they talked about race in a very subliminal way where neither one of them mentioned race. They both knew that they were talking about double standards, but neither one of them wanted to bring up the R word. Why? Because that makes a lot of people uncomfortable to talk about the actual reality. But coincidentally, the people it makes the most uncomfortable are the racist people. So even though Andre Ward, he was tiptoeing around that word race, he was still exposing the hell out of Mark Kriegel. In fact, this interview revealed that Mark Kriegel, he was even more racist than I thought he was. Andre Ward, he had Mark Kriegel on the defense the entire interview, even in this screenshot right here. And this was just a random screenshot that I had took. You can just look at Mark's posture, his body language alone. It looks like he's saying to Andre Ward, look, man, I got black friends. Some of my best friends are black. Actually, my favorite fighter is Mike Tyson. One of my in-laws are black. Hell, I'm wearing a black shirt. These conversations makes them so uncomfortable because they want to be racist without the title. They want to be racist, but they don't want people to call out their racism. You guys remember when Floyd Mayweather, when he went off on Larry Merchant, and the first thing Larry did was he looked at the camera like, who, me? How dare you imply that I'm biased or racist? Instantly, they play stupid and act like they don't know what you're talking about. They're completely oblivious to the whole conversation all of a sudden because their biggest fear is to be called what they are. So I give Andre Ward credit for addressing the issue, even though he didn't kick the door down and he pretty much just opened the door with a lot of euphemisms in this conversation. Andre, he did make a lot of great points in this interview, and the more Mark tried to explain himself, the deeper the hole he started to dig for himself. I want to play some clips, but I just want to say this before I do. You know, I've been telling you guys, people like Andre Ward and Sean Porter, with the type of platforms that they have an opportunity to separate themselves from the old media narrative and present a message that exceeds the typical parroted talking points that a lot of these guys with a microphone get from fans on the internet, race fans. Because a microphone carries a lot of power. And speaking the whole truth and holding a lot of people accountable, like Mark Kriegel and other members of old media, that is the type of tone that resonates way louder than just playing it safe. Because it's too easy for people to just go on the internet and see what the popular narrative is, regardless if it's right or wrong, and then just repeat everything they say verbatim. See, that ain't never been me. I'm gonna always speak the whole truth. And if it hurts your feelings, oh damn well. And see, this is what old media is really good at doing. They use that microphone to push propaganda, to mislead the public with misinformation, disinformation. Next thing you know, all the race fans are echoing those same talking points. And then all of a sudden, you have some black guy who gets on a microphone and he starts repeating those talking points. So if old media can indoctrinate and reach so many people with misinformation and propaganda, that means black people and other anti-racist people with a microphone, they can reverse the trajectory, reach people with the whole truth by speaking the whole truth. So with that being said, I was planning on getting to this clip a lot earlier, but I just couldn't stop talking, as you guys can see. Now I want to get into these clips and show you guys how Andre Ward, he methodically broke down Mark Kriegel and completely exposed him.
With social media, you got to contend with it. You have to deal with it.
And just like the media, you had to contend with.
But it's a different ball game because I don't have to engage you. I don't have to talk to you, right? So I'll use Terence Crawford as an example. And I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to just speak generally. A lot of people were wrong about him. Bob has his opinion about, I'm not looking at the books. I can't speak on what he lost. I can't speak on that. But I'm saying him not being a draw, you know, talking about his personality, you know, and not realizing this dude's story, which you detailed in great detail this whole time at ESPN, but not having the wherewithal to say, man, maybe he's not very talkative because of what he's coming from, and there's a trust thing. So let me do a little work to try to build this trust, and then maybe we can have a better conversation. They wrote what they wrote. They put the headlines.
Hold on. I just want to. Who is they?
I'm saying those
I always think it's always we gotta define who they are.
They know who they are. Those that did it.
Look, all I can say.
Not all.
This is.
But hear me. I said those that did it. They know who they are.
This is a point of frustration to me.
They tried to bury that dude.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack right there. You notice Mark Kriegel, he got extremely defensive. All of a sudden out of nowhere, he was like, wait. Who is they? What are you trying to say here? Once again, because of the guilt, this is the typical Larry Merchant reaction. Play dumb. I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean? This has nothing to do with me, and it certainly has nothing to do with race. I mean, there are so many undertones and euphemisms in this conversation. Now, Andre Ward, he really dropped the bomb when he said they tried to bury Crawford. And Mark, he didn't like that at all because deep down, he knows that he's part of they, which is old media. You heard Mark say, see, this is where I get frustrated. He had the nerve to take offense to what Andre Ward said. You say you're frustrated. So how do you think Terence Crawford and Shakur Stevenson felt when they were a part of Top Rank fighting on ESPN? And they had to listen to commentators like yourself constantly discrediting Shakur Stevenson because Mark Kriegel was definitely a part of that. Matter of fact, I think Shakur Stevenson, he was fighting against Jeremiah Nakataya. Mark Kriegel, he wasn't even on assignment that night, meaning he didn't cover the fight. He wasn't there at the actual fight. And he still found a way to lead the charge when it came to berating Shakur Stevenson's performance. The funniest thing is the whole night, nobody called Shakur Stevenson boring, right? It was around maybe the 7th or 8th round. And then all of a sudden, I remember they either got Mark Kriegel on the phone or they had read his tweet. And Mark Kriegel, he says, you know, if Shakur Stevenson doesn't want people to call him boring, then he needs to do more. And right after Mark Kriegel said that, that was when Tim Bradley, he started to defer to Mark Kriegel. All of a sudden, once again, Tim had never said anything bad about Shakur Stevenson in that whole fight until Mark Kriegel said that. Then all of a sudden, Tim Bradley, he just switched gears and he starts saying, oh man, this fight is boring. I'm over here falling asleep. And keep in mind, when it comes to Mark Kriegel, Joe Tessitore, and even Tim Bradley, with the thousands of fights that they aired on ESPN that all of these guys called, they had never accused a non-black boxer of being boring.
I can't stand Stevenson. Damn, man. Yo, this where it's so backward, man. So backward. They hate black people. I go 12 rounds with a fighter. Oh, he's so boring. Lomachenko go 12 rounds with somebody. Oh, he's the Matrix. The Matrix. I never seen nothing like him. Crazy.
He actually used all of old media and ESPN's talking points to try to defend himself from what Andre Ward was saying. And he's basically doubling down on every single thing that they said about black boxers. But he's trying to justify it in this interview, which is why I said he's just digging himself a deeper hole. I mean, he asked this question, who is they? But the more he talks in this interview, the more he proves he is part of they. In fact, he was talking like he was the grand wizard of they. Okay, so while Kriegel is sitting in the hot seat, Andre Ward, he also brings up the way Michael Jordan was treated when his father died, and they was accusing him of having a gambling addiction, and just basically it was just negative press. And once again, the fact that Andre Ward brought up another black person and how he was treated by the white press, it just further confirms that Mark Kriegel and Andre Ward, they both understood what kind of conversation they were having. They were having a conversation about race, once again, without bringing up the word race. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this clip, and I want you once again to pay attention how defensive Mark Kriegel is, and once again how he's trying to justify the role that he played in this whole situation when it comes to black athletes being treated differently than the non-black athletes by the press. But the excuses that Mark Kriegel is making is not making any sense, and I'm gonna completely break that down. Now Dre, he also noticed the weak excuse that Mark Kriegel made, and Dre, he checked him for it.
This is a point of frustration to me.
They tried to bury that dude. And what happens is, but here's my real issue. It's not even the action, because that's probably not gonna stop. It's probably not gonna stop.
Translation: the racial double standards ain't gonna stop. Mark, you know it, and I know it.
People are gonna write, they're gonna do what they wanna do. Just because you have a job to do, but man, you've been writing. I was just looking at The Last Dance the other day again, and I forgot all the stuff, because I was young when that stuff was happening, that they're writing about Michael Jordan. And I don't know what some of his relationship is with some of the media, but it's like these are cheap shots.
But Michael Jordan didn't suffer from bad press.
At times he did. His father died. He went to go play baseball. His airness. They had certain things that they said.
Some of it in the media or press, like you're doing the best you can.
Yeah. This man said you're doing the best you can. This is so hilarious to me.
Hold up. No, you're doing the. There's two. Let me get to Jordan, and I'll get to, because Crawford, I think, is an interest.
I ain't done on Crawford yet.
No, neither am I. Neither am I, and I agree with a lot of what you say. But like Jordan, man, you're there. You got something coming out the next day. You're doing the best you can on deadline. And
but is it the best when like he retires and then they say that, oh, it's really a suspension and they're hiding something? Like, those are personal things. Or his father dies, it's probably because of his gambling addiction.
You're doing the best.
That's doing the best you can?
You think people didn't people think, and I was there, I covered it. People were on Jordan's jock, and they should have been. He was the greatest. Michael Jordan didn't suffer from bad press. And some
but
of the
he did
things,
at times.
Some of the things that are cynical, it's like you have a right to be cynical. He rose above it, though. I'll tell you what I think you're talking about, which is something that I was taught when I was a kid. I was a New York tabloid columnist. Probably everything you hate in the media. Okay, cool. And I was taught this, to your point. And man, you want to be like Shakespeare? Great, knock yourself out. Go be Shakespeare on your own time. But right now, I want some red meat. I want red meat. I want some that sell newspapers. And they're allowed to ask you for that. And in one way or another, most consumers want some form of red meat. Certainly on the phone, on social media. You do the best you can in the time allotted. Some guys and women are good, fair, some not. I've seen both sides. I don't think Jordan suffered from bad press. I mean, it wasn't like he was in New York. And in New York especially, you talk about the New York swagger, we were expected.
He's a global superstar though.
No, but we were expected in New York.
He transcended the city.
But we were expected in New York. Yo, don't be guarding up the athletes. They could do that in Chicago. They definitely do it in LA. But in New York, man, and you'd always throw a punch just to make sure you were doing your job. Is that dishonest? Is that wrong? I don't know. I did the best I could as a kid.
Yeah,
No. But I'm telling you.
But there's some guys that are maliciously doing this stuff.
I'm copping to what you said as a columnist, and I'll tell you why. I just told you, hey, this was the instruction. This is the job, man. You can't. If you're a New York City columnist, you can't. Forgive me. You can't be seen as straight. Same thing you were talking about, New York swagger. Yeah, man. Don't let him get away with that. It was a mindset.
What's the non-New York guys' excuses?
It depends on the cat. I always thought the other guys around the country were much softer than we were. We were just
from the New York perspective.
But let me go back to Crawford.
Yeah, go back to Crawford. Now, did you see how Andre Ward, he asked him, because Kriegel, he was just rambling on, like making a whole lot of excuses that didn't make sense, trying to justify once again the way they were maliciously going after Michael Jordan, making up stuff that wasn't even true. Kriegel, he was talking about we were doing the best that we could. He said, I don't know if I was right or wrong. He almost even said, I was on both sides, but then he changed it real quick and said, I've seen both sides when it comes to reporters. Andre Ward had this man tripping all over himself. It was like he was in a court on a stand getting taken down by a lawyer. We were doing the best we could. And it's our New York swagger. He even threw a couple yo's in there like, yo, it's the New York swagger. Like we were more aggressive. So Andre Ward, he said, well, what's the excuse for all the other reporters that wasn't in New York? Because they were saying the exact same thing. They were saying it's no different than old media. I mean, it's like Mark saying, the reason why I call Shakur Stevenson boring is because I'm a reporter from New York. And that's just our New York swagger, the way we criticize fighters. But we know that this criticism comes from white reporters nationwide. Now, in this next clip, when they go back to talking about Terence Crawford, once again, it's funny because Andre Ward, he's talking about the way old media mistreated Terence Crawford. They never gave him his flowers. They never admitted that they were wrong after they had been mistreating him for over 10 years when he was supposed to be pound for pound all along. And they kept removing him from the pound for pound #1 spot, right? And they kept trying to discredit him. And once again, it's amazing to me because Mark Kriegel, he's the one that said to Andre Ward, who is they? But in this segment right here, he is going to once again use all of the excuses trying to justify the reason why Terence Crawford was mistreated for the last 10 years. He starts off by making it sound like he was doing Crawford a favor by doing stories on him and his family. But then at the same time, he takes Bob Arum's side by saying, even though I was doing these stories, it was really hard to sell Terence Crawford.
In New York perspective.
But let me go back to Crawford. I don't think the last time I spent as much time covering trying to think on just a single assignment as I did on Crawford in Nebraska. Might have been a homicide in Brownsville of a cop who died in the Tilden Projects, where Shusha Carrington's from. I had a hard time selling that. I had a hard time selling the Crawford thing. And like people are like, well, who is he? Is he here or there? And ESPN gave me a lot of space and a lot of time I took with that Crawford thing. And I'm really proud of it because I was in like the minutia of his life and Bomac's life. And I felt privileged to do that. And I wanted to show it around to everybody, like, look at this story. And a lot of it was about Crawford and his mom. And I didn't go easy on them.
What is he talking about when he said, I didn't go easy on them? Once again, he's trying to connect this to the Jordan story, and he's trying to justify how he treated Jordan by saying, see, I didn't go easy on Terence Crawford either. I didn't go easy on his family. Man, I'm telling y'all, man, if I dissected every single thing that Mark Kriegel said in this interview, I'd probably be here for an hour or two. But anyway, in the next clip, I want you guys to notice how Mark Kriegel, he continues to double talk. 1 minute, he's trying to justify the reason why they treated Terence Crawford the way they did. And, he's trying to basically say that, Terence Crawford, he just couldn't sell. He couldn't sell. And we tried so hard. But then at the same time, he says, it's not Terence Crawford's job to promote himself. And then he admits that Terence Crawford versus Jose Benavidez was a massive success on ESPN. In fact, if I recall, it was the most watched fight on ESPN that year. But then he tries to downplay it by saying, but that was only a success because of what happened at the weigh-in when Jose Benavidez pushed Crawford. He also tried to downplay Crawford's win, knocking out Jose Benavidez. He used that fake-ass, tired-ass excuse. He had the nerve to say, Jose Benavidez, in the later rounds, he was hobbling around on one leg because he got shot in the knee. Knowing damn well it's a lie that Jose, he was hobbling around on one leg in the fight. The only time in the fight that anything was wrong with Jose's legs is when he got his ass knocked out. Let's also not forget, this is the same man, Mark Kriegel, who also used to trash Floyd Mayweather. He trashed and discredited Floyd Mayweather's entire career. So how does he explain that? I can't stand these kind of races because Mark is the type of person that will make like 20 different excuses why they are treating black athletes a certain kind of way, but then say it has nothing to do with racism. Because if he has to admit that, then he would have to admit that he's the problem. And Terence Crawford, Floyd Mayweather, and Shakur Stevenson, they were never the problem. He would then have to admit that he's a part of they. And this is the reason why I have more respect for open racists like Ryan Garcia and Teofimo Lopez. Because at least they're telling you what it is straight up. They're not beating around the bush. There ain't no semantics. They letting you know what time it is. And this is the reason why I told you guys in my very last video, when it comes to Mexican racism, it's more overt. It's more in your face. They don't really try to be racist, but then act like they don't know what you're talking about when you bring up racism. See, by way of contrast, a lot of white people, they have more of a guilt complex. So their racism is far more covert.
And I remember he fought Benavidez. And if you go back, you look at the rating for that fight, it did a really good number. I mean, like great.
And FYI, Crawford, he was doing like the biggest numbers on ESPN, on Top Rank, not just for the Jose Benavidez fight. He was at least top 2 when it comes to doing the biggest numbers on ESPN.
And Benavidez was a for that time, considered a little bit substandard opponent. Even though he came up, he was incredibly talented. And the fight got juiced up because Benavidez went to go slap him at the weigh-in. Crawford has a story. It's an incredibly dramatic story, and I think it was undersold. And you don't have to be like a song and dance guy to sell a fight. Interesting case, you know, Floyd Mayweather says, what do I got to do to sell? And to my mind, he reconstructed himself. And he became this incredibly, probably the second most lucrative fighter after Tyson. But Terence shouldn't have been asked to do anything other than what he did. My opinion.
That's my point.
Exactly.
That's my point. That's the whole point.
I think that, I'm sorry, who are these other guys who like are household words that are selling?
That's my point.
He needed, but here's the thing. To me, what Terence got blamed for is the inability to get him a sufficiently worthy opponent.
That's a lie. Not only did Terence Crawford have a lot of worthy opponents, but there were a lot of fighters on ESPN that didn't have worthy opponents, and they were not treated the way Terence Crawford and Shakur Stevenson were treated. And we know that Kriegel and the rest of the race fans, they all praised Canelo Alvarez for beating opponents that were not worthy. Terence Crawford became the undisputed champion at 140 when he was fighting for Top Rank. And he beat fighters like Victor Postol. Victor Postol had just knocked out Lucas Matisse. Terence Crawford, he stopped Felix Diaz on Top Rank and ESPN. And like I've been telling you guys, Jose Benavidez, he was a first-round draft pick when it comes to him being signed to Top Rank. Can you imagine if Jose Benavidez was in Lomachenko's weight class and Lomachenko did to Benavidez the same thing that Terence Crawford did to him? Can you imagine what Kriegel and the rest of ESPN would be saying about Lomachenko? We know what time it is. He says that Terence Crawford didn't have anyone to fight, and that's the reason why he was treated the way he was treated. Meanwhile, Teofimo Lopez, he chooses to fight George Kambosos over Devin Haney. He turned down Devin Haney to fight George Kambosos, loses to George Kambosos, and Mark Kriegel and the rest of ESPN, they make excuses for why he lost to a guy that he was supposed to beat easy, even on a bad day. Now, in this next clip, Mark, he brings up another black fighter, comparing him to Terence Crawford. He brings up Errol Spence, and he talks about Errol Spence having more drawing power than Terence Crawford did. The point of him bringing up Errol Spence is to obviously tell Andre Ward, you see, Andre, this has nothing to do with race, because they liked Errol Spence. He was treated well, and he had drawing power. Well, that was because PBC, they respected him, and they promoted him the way he was supposed to be promoted. You can't compare Errol Spence to Crawford because Spence wasn't a top-rank ESPN fighter. If Errol Spence was fighting on Top Rank, he would have been treated the exact same way that Crawford was treated because all the black fighters were being treated that way at that time. The only time they treated black fighters a little bit better was after Terence Crawford sued Bob Arum and Shakur Stevenson left, because that's when the shit really hit the fan and they were getting a lot of backlash. Top Rank was. Not to mention, Errol Spence didn't have to deal with a promoter telling the public that, I can't sell this guy and I'm losing money on him. Why would a promoter be telling the public something like that? Because we know Bob never said this about any other fighter. He never came out and talked about the fact that, Lomachenko is still fighting in little ass ballrooms. So is Teofimo Lopez. And something else about Errol Spence. The biggest fight that Errol Spence had at that time was when he fought against Mikey Garcia. Just like Terence Crawford's biggest fight was when he fought against Jose Benavidez. It's not a surprise, the biggest fights in the sport of boxing is USA versus Mexico. But this whole conversation by Mark Kriegel talking about Terence Crawford's lack of drawing power is a deflection, because we know that Terence Crawford has drawing power right now. So why is he even talking about 10 years ago? He's trying to justify why Terence Crawford was being mistreated when he fought for Top Rank by once again saying it's Terence Crawford's lack of drawing power and he didn't have the opponents to fight. But it's pretty crazy when you think about the fact that Mark Kriegel, he knows that Terence Crawford actually sued Bob Arum for racial bias. And speaking of Mark Kriegel saying that Crawford didn't get the fights that he was supposed to get, how come Mark didn't also talk about the fact that Bob Arum, he admitted that he killed the Manny Pacquiao fight because he didn't want to see Manny Pacquiao lose to Terence Crawford? How come Mark Kriegel didn't bring that up? How are you going to sit over here and talk about Terence Crawford not getting the fights that he needed to get when you know that the promoter was actually killing the biggest fights for Terence Crawford? Instead of promoting Terence Crawford, Bob Arum was demoting him.
But I got a question though, okay? Where was, I've done stories on Errol Spence, okay?
Do you see how this man is trying to desperately get credit for doing his actual job? He's sitting over here bragging about covering Errol Spence. That's what you're supposed to do. That's your job. That's like somebody working at a damn restaurant bragging about serving black people. You're a reporter. What are you talking about? He basically saying to Andre Ward, see, I'm not that bad. I'm not a racist. I'm telling you, man, I be covering these black fighters. I even covered Errol Spence.
I've done stories on Errol Spence, okay? He was a great fighter. I've seen him in the gym, like beat up like light heavyweights or cruiserweights, incredibly strong guy. No one ever questioned Spence's drawing power. But was he a bundle of personality? No. Like when I look at Terence Crawford, I see a complicated, interesting guy with a story. And if you can't tell that story, shame on you. But the biggest thing in boxing, you want to sell a fighter? The first thing you do, you want to quibble with him because of his style or this or that. The first thing you do, get him an opponent worthy of his titles, worthy of his ability, an opponent who you see him fight and you will remember.
But you can't fabricate that, and you got to take. You got to take what you're given sometimes. Mm-hmm. And what I'm saying about Crawford is, and I can name 10 fighters right now.
I think I'm with you on this argument. I
can name 10 fighters right now that have not had a marquee matchup, but because we like him, he's our guy, and we got a good rapport, you're going to think he's the next coming.
Let me translate what Andre Ward was saying right there. He was saying to Kriegel the same thing you guys just heard me say, but Dre is being diplomatic. He's basically telling Mark Kriegel, you know damn well that if this was a non-black fighter and he wasn't fighting nobody, if you guys personally liked him, you guys would be praising him. You wouldn't discount him because he had no opponents. In fact, it's quite the contrary. Old media, they're always trying to protect their favorite fighters from dangerous BAs like Devin Haney. When Devin Haney was calling out Lomachenko and he was Lomachenko's mandatory, Top Rank and old media and ESPN, they wasn't putting pressure on Lomachenko to fight Devin Haney, just like they didn't put pressure on Teofimo Lopez to fight Devin Haney.
Because we like him, he's our guy, and we got a good rapport, you're gonna think he's the next coming. Terence Crawford.
I think that's true in
but we're just talking boxing right now. Terence Crawford, the biggest issue is that things will be said and done, mm-hmm. and then when you overcome the thing that they said that you couldn't do many times over, which he's done, he got the fight. He performed in the fight. Mm-hmm. His stature grew. He continued to win, right? He's making more money than he's ever made before. Oh, and then he got the Canelo fight that many said he wasn't gonna get. But here's the thing where I lose respect a lot of times for those that are speaking about our sport that we're lifers in. We're risking our life to be in.
When Dre says those people, he's talking about Mark Kriegel. And Mark, he knows that. That's the reason why Mark is so defensive.
He's making more money than he's ever made before. Oh, and then he got the Canelo fight that many said he wasn't gonna get. But here's the thing where I lose respect a lot of times for those that are speaking about our sport that we're lifers in. We're risking our life to be in. They never come back and apologize and say, man, I was wrong about this guy. And the same energy that I have, doing the best that I can.
You heard what Dre said right there, right? He said, the same energy I had when I was doing the best that I can. He's talking about Mark because that's what Mark kept saying, right? Mark kept saying, man, I was just doing the best that I could. I'm doing the best that I can as a reporter.
To make sure I meet this deadline, we don't put that same energy
well, I can say I've done it with Mike.
You did it with me, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
look, but I'm saying, we don't.
Did you guys hear what he said? He said, oh, I did it with Mike. When he first said that, I didn't even know who he was talking about. Then I realized, oh, he's talking about Mike Tyson. Apparently, I guess he wrote a book on Mike Tyson. But what did I tell you guys earlier in this video? That's they won. That's they won. They always say, I got a black friend and my favorite fighter is Mike Tyson. So there's no way I can be a racist, right? But how is it possible that you're saying that you came back and gave Mike Tyson the credit that he deserved, but you didn't do it for Terence Crawford? Mike Tyson ain't been relevant in the ring in over 30 years, damn near 40 years. And let me tell you this as well. This is the reason why a lot of these racist reporters, they like to say, oh, you know, Mike Tyson's my favorite fighter. Muhammad Ali's my favorite fighter. Because first of all, when it comes to those fighters, they were never a threat to non-black fans, right? Because all of the guys that they beat were other black fighters, right? But when it comes to Terence Crawford, when it comes to Devin Haney, when it comes to Javante, Floyd Mayweather, they are fighting against old media's favorite fighters. So they are a direct threat, and they are a threat today, not a threat 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Sure, I meet this deadline. We don't put that same energy.
Well, I can say I've done it with Mike.
You did it with me, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
look, but I'm saying we don't come back and say, you know what, man, I was wrong about that guy. You were right. We don't try to balance out them scales or right that wrong, and we just normalize this stuff.
I'll give you, but it goes.
Last thing. We normalize it, Krieg, and then when you do get on the soapbox and start to elevate your voice and speak about it, oh, nobody wants to hear that.
I had a
like,
question.
man, I love this sport and I love the fighters that's in it.
I do too.
And I'm not saying you don't. And I don't appreciate those kind of things, whether it's coming my way. I'm not saying critique. Sometimes fighters just sensitive. Some of the toughest guys in the world, but you can't tell them something because they sensitive about their work. And it's like, dude, you shouldn't have felt that way about that. Right. But then sometimes you got an agenda.
Translation, he's talking about old media's agenda. And Mark Kriegel has that agenda. That's what Andre Ward was telling Mark to his face in a diplomatic way. So at the end of the day, man, I am glad that once again, Andre Ward, he put Mark Kriegel, he put old media in their place. He didn't kick the door down, but he got something started. And Mark Kriegel, he definitely felt it. And it was just refreshing to see one of these race fans get put in the hot seat and get completely exposed. And it's only because Terence Crawford, he did the unthinkable. He did something that a lot of people thought was almost impossible. Moved up 3 weight classes and dominated Canelo Alvarez. If it wasn't for Terence Crawford doing that, Andre Ward wouldn't even be this comfortable to expose the way Terence Crawford was treated over the last 10 years. And same thing with America's white media. Just like the video I just dropped the other day. If it wasn't for what Crawford did, he had to do the impossible just for some of them to give BAs the credit that they actually deserve. With that being said, I'm gonna wrap this video up. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
Anyone who's ever had it understands shoulder pain is no joke. It can keep you up at night. Once it's in pain, it stays in pain all the time. You find yourself popping all kinds of painkillers. Then you find yourself trying to figure out what the problem is. You go see doctors, you go see surgeons, you go see physical therapists, massage therapists. The shoulder in particular has 4 different joints. Any one of those 4 joints can be problematic because you have these different ligaments that wrap around and hold those joints together. And then you have tendons from any one of 20 different muscles that attach to the shoulder blade that can go awry. Muscle and Bone NYC has been around serving many people, getting them out of shoulder pain and all kinds of joint pain since 2012. Contact us at mbnyc.fitness or call us at 917-238-3650. Let's get you out of that pain.
All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to repair eczema scars, burns and bruises, dark spots and blemishes, the fever blisters, diabetic ulcers, this right here is the perfect product for you guys. It's called Errol Face and Body Oil. Athletes and top-ranking boxers, they're also using it after training to reduce swelling, inflammation, and to ease the pain. So get yours today. Go to erroldekey.com, like them on Facebook, and follow them on Instagram. Let me tell you guys about Issa Israel Law Firm. It is a full-service legal practice based in Denver, Colorado, an emerging hub for combat sports and high-altitude training. If you're a fighter inside or outside of the ring and you need a law firm you can trust to fight for you, visit thefighterfirm.com or email help@iilawfirm.com. Legal representation is usually limited to plaintiffs or defendants in Colorado, but iFirm can help anyone in the world with trademarking their business name, logos, and U.S. immigration issues. This brother has been my attorney for a while and helped guide me through all kinds of business and civil issues. So make sure you guys go to thefighterfirm.com.
You can just look at somebody and tell them, like, yo, you're not that guy, buddy. You're not that guy. You can look at me and tell I'm that guy. I was born like this. I was blessed with this.
I'm always hungry. Just because I'm world champion, don't stop. The main goal and objective, and that's to keep going. I'm gonna forever keep going, forever keep winning.
Just naturally, man. I know how to do this. I born for this. I born for be different. And then you only this year. You know, a lot of these fighters just do rapping. I just came off a loss, and I'm down to fight the best. I'm going up to 135 to fight somebody that they think I can't beat, and I'm going to dominate him, and then I come back down to 30 and beat his ass too.
My hunger is always going to be there. I never get satisfied. I'm not satisfied. My job still isn't done. That's why. My job ain't done yet.